For today's Christmas special, I'm gonna transform myself into the Grinch. Wait, I forgot something. Much better. Oh, one more thing. Perfect. This is gonna be a Christmas special edition and it's gonna be a little different than usual. In today's video, I'm gonna show you how I turned myself into the Grinch in a time lapse, but with voiceover. Alright, let's go. To start off, I cut out myself since I didn't really need the background. For this, I used the selection brush tool and the refine button. Since my portrait wasn't taken on a solid colored background, I knew it would be hard for me to make an accurate selection of my beard. So I basically cut off the sides completely, which we'll fix later. Since the Grinch has quite an animal-like face, which looks fairly similar to that of the snout of a dog, I used the lasso tool to make a selection of my nose and duplicate it to its own layer to reshape it later. The Grinch also doesn't have a mustache like mine, so I shaved it off completely using the inpainting brush tool, and with it I shaved off my complete mouth. Don't worry, we'll get it back. Once the bottom part of my face was gone, it was time to reshape my nose and make it tiny and dog-like. For this I simply used the move tool and positioned it much higher on my face, almost between my eyes. Before making myself green, I figured the Christmas stealing creature had a much wider face than mine. So I copied my face onto its own layer and used some liquify tools to widen my cheekbones. Now that was done, it was time to make myself green. To do this, I grouped everything together except my new tiny dog nose and used a recolor adjustment layer to change my skin tone to green. Then I did the same to my new nose but made it a much darker green and used a mask to fine-tune the shape. I tried to get his iconic facial wrinkles onto my face, but as you can see, I failed miserably. So I left the wrinkles for what they were and started focusing on my new mouth. To make my mouth green like the rest as well, I dropped it into the recolored group and masked out everything that I didn't need until I was satisfied. Well, kind of. I used some adjustment layers, some masking, some warping to get it as good as I could. After a long time, I finally noticed that not only my skin, but also my head, my eyes and my lips had turned green. So to fix this, I went back into the mask of the recolor layer and masked out the head. The eyes and the mouth would follow later. I also masked out my necklace since it was totally distracting and I wouldn't need it anyways. If you look closely at the Grinch, you see he has lots of hair growing around his face, but not on his face. Which is very similar to me and my beard that doesn't want to grow on my face but only underneath my chin. So to grow some extra awesome facial hair, I used the selection brush tool and refining to make a selection of my beard and duplicate and warp it so that it would cover the right side of my cheek. Then I used some fur brushes that would help me mask out excessive beard hairs while maintaining the texture of my beard. Once that was done, I simply duplicated the whole group to the other side of my face and warped it a little bit so that it wouldn't look like an exact copy. Next thing I had to do was to dye my beard green, just like that of my green friend. Now since my actual beard was still part of the original image, I had to make a new selection of it and grouped all pieces of the beard together. Since my beard is almost black, a simple recolor adjustment layer wouldn't work this time. So to make my beard green, I made a green fill layer instead and played with the blend ranges until things started to look good. I accidentally hit the beard dye layer, but it will come back in a bit. Now it was time to get my real eye color back as well as some original colors of my lips. So I went back into the skin recolor adjustment layer and masked out my eyes. Then I reduced the brush opacity and subtly painted back in some original lip color. Now I couldn't get around it anymore, so I gathered all my courage and decided to give the wrinkles a second try. I first tried it using this as a reference image, but after trying everything, really, literally everything, I finally figured that the image that I was using simply had way too much contrast compared to my portrait photo. Also, it had too much texture inside, so things would just look off. So after figuring this out, I deleted everything, took another reference image, and this one magically instantly fit like a glove. To mostly keep my own facial features, I took my own new nose and placed it over my new wrinkles. I then used an HSL adjustment layer in combination with some other adjustment layers to make sure the colors and the luminosity of the wrinkles and face matched. Since the Grinch is a very furry creature, I figured I had to grow some extra body hair as well. So I found this fur texture on unsplash.com and positioned it on top of my body. I used the same mask that I used to cut off the background of the original portrait so that the fur would only appear on the body, and then used the fur brush to get back the furry texture. I almost forgot about his yellow eyes, so I used another recolor adjustment layer and used the mask to color my eyes yellow. Then I played around with it a little longer, I changed the background and I did some other stuff. Now, before I show you the end result and before you click off, I want to wish you a Merry Christmas and a beautiful 2021. I want to thank you for all your support that I've got from you for over the last months, which is super amazing and I couldn't be more grateful. If you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a like, and if you enjoy my content overall, of course feel very free to subscribe to my channel. Now let me show you the end result.